My name was Ahmed. I was a Sheikh, a teacher of the Quran, a figure of authority in my community in Istanbul. Respected, revered even. I wore my faith like a badge of honor, standing rigidly against the tides of doubt that plagued so many. But behind the facade of certainty lay an emptiness I dared not confess, a gnawing void that whispered in the silence of my prayers. Then, everything changed in an instant. One moment I was driving home, lost in thought. The next, darkness enveloped me as my world shattered in a violent crash. I didn't just lose consciousness. I descended into an abyss where I was confronted by a radiant figure, cloaked in unparalleled light. It was Jesus. He approached me amidst the chaos, not to condemn, but to illuminate, a beacon in my shadowed heart. In that surreal encounter, I felt the weight of all my teachings crumble. I witnessed the true essence of the spiritual battle weaves through existence. And I learned that the very systems I upheld were prisons disguised as sanctuaries. A revelation struck me. Obedience had become a prison, and I, a captive of the very beliefs I held sacred. Upon awakening, the true nightmare began. My family condemned me for this spiritual awakening, my past now a shackle. Accusations of betrayal echoed through my community, isolating me in my quest for truth. But I couldn't remain silent. There was an urgent desire to share this revelation. A fire ignited within me, a call to arms against the shadows that cloak our understanding of faith. Now, I invite you to join me as I share the intricate tapestry of my journey, from the depths of despair to the dawn of a newfound purpose. In a world desperate for light, I emerged as a harbinger of truth. But before we delve deeper, tell me, where are you watching from, and what does the clock show? I want to know how far this message travels, and if you too are searching for the kind of truth that sets one free, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. How could I articulate that my love for Jesus had opened my eyes to the hidden agenda that held us captive? The teachings I had once cherished now felt like chains binding me to a narrative designed to perpetuate deception. I felt an overwhelming emptiness, as though I were adrift on a stormy sea, desperately searching for land while the waves of doubt crashed down around me. Each day carried the weight of my decisions, and I often withdrew into silence, haunted by the fear of loneliness. The societal expectations that once enveloped me now felt constricting, drowning my spirit in hopelessness. I was torn between the truth of my awakening and the community that had defined me. The elite manipulation I had witnessed haunted my thoughts. I felt compelled to share what I had learned, but the fear of further alienation kept me silent. Questions still echoed within me. What would it mean to stand against the narrative that had ruled our lives? Would anyone join me in this struggle, or would I face this awakening alone? Despite the fear, the flame of hope flickered within my heart. Deep down, I knew that I could not remain a passive observer in this spiritual war. My awakening demanded action, a calling to stand against the forces that thrived in deception and division. I sought refuge in secret meetings with others who had also felt the sting of betrayal, fellow seekers yearning for truth. In those gatherings, we began to explore the teachings of Jesus together, igniting a shared fire within our souls. It became clear to me that together, we could confront the hidden agendas that divided us and strive towards a reality built upon love, truth, and unity. As I took my first tentative steps in this new direction, I felt empowered and terrified all at once. My experiences had taught me that the journey would not be easy, but the urgency was undeniable. I understood that I must share my journey with the world, exposing the layers of deception that had held us captive for too long. The spiritual awakening was both a personal mission and a communal call to arms. I was ready to embrace the unknown, knowing that every path taken in the pursuit of truth could lead to liberation not just for myself, but for all those who had been yearning for the light. Through this inner conflict, I had found purpose. Now, it was time to act. In the secrecy of night, away from the prying eyes of my community. I embarked on a quiet journey into the depths of the Christian faith. It started with stolen moments late at night, scrolling through videos and testimonies that spoke of profound transformation. I was captivated by the stories of others like me, people who had experienced divine encounters that ignited their spirits and reshaped their lives. Their revelations resonated with my own spiritual thirst, a longing for something that transcended the constraints of the teachings I had known. I could feel an awakening stirring within me, yet with every new insight came the weight of fear. Fear of losing my cultural identity, fear of rejection by my family and my community, and fear of the unknown path that lay ahead. As I began exploring the Bible, the words leapt off the page with a vibrancy I had never encountered before. Each verse felt like a gentle nudge, pulling me toward a deeper understanding of love, compassion, and forgiveness. I discovered that Jesus was not merely a historical figure. He was a living embodiment of the love that transcends all boundaries. As I read about his teachings, I found myself drawn into a spiritual war, one that mirrored the internal struggles I faced when reconciling my faith with my newfound beliefs. I felt as though I were standing at a crossroads, torn between the safety of tradition and the liberating call of the truth I was beginning to see. Connecting with others who had undergone similar awakenings became a lifeline for me. We met in secret, often in dimly lit rooms, sharing our struggles and the journeys that had led us to this point of transformation. This newfound community became a sanctuary, a place where my doubts could be expressed without fear of harsh judgment. In these intimate gatherings, we spoke about the hidden agendas driving the world around us, the forces that sought to manipulate societal beliefs and maintain the status quo. The elite, we discussed, thrived on the deception that kept people divided and fearful, perpetuating cycles of violence and misunderstanding that kept us all disconnected from one another. Amidst these discussions, I felt urgency surging within me. I couldn't ignore the call to action that echoed in my heart. The truths being unveiled demanded that we rise up, to challenge not only our own assumptions but the broader narratives that have defined our relationships with one another. I began to understand that my exploration of the Christian faith was not just a personal journey. It was a vital piece of the larger puzzle of awakening that was unfolding in the world. The realization that we were all interconnected in this spiritual war filled me with determination. I was ready to confront the fear that had kept me silent for so long. Yet, the journey was not without its pain. Each revelation I embraced came with the risk of alienation from my family and community, those I loved deeply. I grappled with guilt for questioning the very foundations of the faith that had been handed down to me. How could I convey my newfound understanding without causing them pain? The thought of being labeled a traitor haunted me. Yet I knew I could not turn back. The urgency of awakening was stronger than my fear. I had glimpsed the truth, and I felt compelled to share it, even if it meant stepping into the unknown and facing the potential loss of everything I once held dear. As I prepared to take my first bold steps into this new reality, a fire ignited within me, urging me to confront not only my own fears but the very structures that sought to keep me, and so many others, bound in darkness. Realizing that my experience was a calling to reveal the hidden truth brought a rush of urgency that I could not ignore. The moment I opened my eyes to a world I had thought I understood, I recognized the profound implications of what I had witnessed. Jesus stood before me in that sacred space, illuminating the realities of my spiritual struggles and revealing the intricate layers of deception that surrounded my existence. This revelation wasn't just for my benefit. It was meant to be shared, a divine mandate compelling me to break the silence that had long imprisoned both me and those around me. However, the stakes were incredibly high. I was acutely aware of the dangers that accompanied my decision to speak out. The community in which I lived was steeped in tradition, clinging to beliefs that often suppressed individual inquiry and dissent. I knew that by revealing the truth I had been shown, I would be stepping into a perilous realm filled with potential backlash. The fear of being cast out, of losing the very fabric of my community, loomed large in my mind. Conversations about faith were fraught with danger. One misstep could lead to accusations of heresy or betrayal. Yet, as I contemplated the implications of inaction, I felt a growing desire to set aside my fears and embrace the truth that Jesus had entrusted to me. This was not merely a personal awakening. It was a battle against the spiritual war that raged within society. I began to see the connection between my internal struggles and the external forces that perpetuated the status quo. The elite benefited from keeping the masses divided and confused, using hidden agendas to manipulate beliefs and maintain control. The ongoing conflicts in the world, the divisions sowed among us, all of this became painfully clear. It broke my heart to realize how many were ensnared in a false narrative, unaware of the greater truths that lay just beyond their grasp. Each day spent in this clarity intensified my resolve to act, to reach out and share the message that had transformed my understanding. In the quiet moments as I reflected on the path ahead, I often found myself praying for courage. I yearned for a way to bridge the gap between the truths I now embraced and the community that held my past. The weight of my responsibility felt immense. I wasn't just advocating for my beliefs. I was championing a message that could potentially free others from the chains of deception. Jesus had revealed to me not just the need for awakening, but also the power of love and unity that could dismantle the barriers erected by fear and misunderstanding. I felt called to be a vessel of that love, to illuminate the darkness that clouded so many lives, even if it meant facing hostility in return. As I ventured into this new mission, I approached every encounter with a mix of hope and trepidation. Each conversation was an opportunity to share the revelation of my journey, to challenge the entrenched orthodoxies that kept us in ignorance. I started attending gatherings, joining small groups of like-minded souls who had also experienced their own awakenings, united by the shared conviction that the truth must be sought and shared openly. Together, we examined the teachings of Jesus, discussed our insights, and formulated strategies to reach out to the community, understanding that the spiritual war required unity among those who sought the light. But even as enthusiasm surged within me, the fear of rejection yet haunted me. Would my family embrace this new side of me, or would they distance themselves from the man they once knew? Would my community be open to hearing my perspective, or would they see me as a threat, a voice of dissent in a place where conformity ruled? As those thoughts flooded my mind, I realized that every step I took forward would require immense courage. I knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but driven by a profound sense of purpose, I was ready to step into the fray, prepared to fight for the truth that could liberate us all from the darkness of deception. In a final act of courage, I made the decision to leave everything I had ever known behind. My home, my family, and the community where I had spent my entire life felt suffocating in the aftermath of my profound awakening. Changing my name became a symbolic gesture, a way to shed the identity that had been intertwined with the expectations of those I loved. Ahmed no longer encapsulated the man I had become after my encounter with Jesus in that mosque. I needed to step into a new life, dedicated to evangelization and the pursuit of truth. It was a steep and treacherous path, but I felt compelled to follow it, driven by a deep sense of purpose. The weight on my heart was heavy as I walked away from my past. I could hear the whispers of doubt echoing in my mind. What would my family think? Would they understand my decision, or would they see it as an act of betrayal? These fears clawed at me, threatening to pull me back to complacency, but I pressed on. I felt an urgency to share the revelations I had received during my near-death experience, the truths that peeled back the layers of deception which had long shrouded the hearts of my people. The spiritual war we faced was real, and I would not remain a passive observer in the fight for liberation. As I distanced myself from my familiar surroundings, I began to seek out others who had experienced similar awakenings. Secret meetings became my lifeline, a place where I could share my fears and hopes without judgment. We discussed the hidden agendas behind the systems that divided us, the manipulation of thoughts and beliefs that the elite wielded as a weapon against our unity. Together we explored the teachings of Jesus, learning that love must triumph over hate and understanding must break the chains of ignorance. Each conversation sparked a fire in my soul, reaffirming my resolve to spread this message far and wide, guiding others toward their own awakenings. Yet still, the internal conflict simmered beneath the surface. I grappled with guilt over abandoning the cultural identity that had nurtured me, torn between my past and the future I now envisioned. How could I reconcile my love for my family with my newfound beliefs? The love I held for them remained steadfast, even when they rejected the truth I had come to embrace. I knew that my journey could lead to profound isolation, but I also understood that my pursuit of truth was a sacred mission, one that could ultimately guide them too, toward the same liberation I felt. As I ventured further into my new life, I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. I was on a mission to shine light in the darkness, to awaken others who were lost amidst the deceptions that perpetuated division and suffering. While I faced the uncertainty of what lay ahead, I remained committed to fostering connections and building a community rooted in love and truth. With each step, I felt the stirring of a greater awakening on the horizon, a collective move toward unity that could challenge the power structures keeping humanity shackled. The path of evangelization called to me, and with faith as my guide, I prepared to confront whatever challenges awaited me, fueled by the hope of reunification with my family and the chance to help others find their way to the light. As I reflect on my journey, I stand at a crossroads, both within myself and within this world that pulses around us, shrouded in shadows yet yearning for light. I've come to understand that my encounter with Jesus wasn't just a pivotal moment in my own life. It's a clarion call for all of us to awaken to a deeper reality. The veil has been lifted, revealing the spiritual war that rages not just in distant lands but within our own hearts and communities. It begs us to ask, are we paying attention? Are we ready to embrace a truth that transcends our immediate understanding of faith? What if the very systems we trust are mere distractions, designed to keep us feeling safe, but actually serve to isolate us from the love and unity we're all desperately seeking? Each of us holds a piece of the truth, a light that can illuminate the darkness, yet we often remain silent, afraid of ridicule or rejection. My experience has shown me that the urgent call is to rise together, to connect, to share, and to awaken one another. But it begins with each of us, standing firm in our personal truth. So I ask you, have you felt a stirring in your spirit that compels you to question what you've always accepted? Join me in this conversation. Share your stories, your doubts, your awakenings in the comments below. Together, we can weave a tapestry of shared experiences that can serve as a beacon of hope. If this story has resonated with you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. Your engagement fuels our mission to dig deeper, unveil hidden truths, and join together in this spiritual revolution. What's coming next will challenge your perceptions even more, and I promise, you won't want to miss it. In our upcoming video, we'll take a closer look at another breathtaking testimony, a story that speaks to the countless souls who have wrestled with their identity and faith, just like I did. The truth is unfolding, and we have a responsibility to seek it out together. Thank you for being here with me today. I'm Ahmed, and let this be a reminder. Every journey toward truth begins with a single step into the unknown. Keep seeking, and together we will uncover the light that awaits us all. What's about to be revealed is not just a story, it's an invitation to transformation. In a modest conservative neighborhood in Istanbul, Turkey, my life revolved around tradition and religious duty. As a Sheikh, I was revered for my strict adherence to Islamic values, leading prayers and guiding my community with unwavering devotion. The weight of expectation was immense. Every day I donned the mantle of authority, teaching my students the principles that had been passed down through generations. Yet, beneath this facade of confidence, I grappled with a burdensome emptiness. The atmosphere was filled with strict rules, and any deviation from tradition was met with harsh judgment. I felt trapped in a cycle of adherence and unspoken doubt, constantly yearning for something more profound, something beyond the rigid constraints that governed our lives. Those doubts intensified during my moments of prayer. There I was, kneeling in devotion, but the connection with God felt strained, distant. I found myself going through the motions, reciting verses without truly feeling their significance. Each supplication echoed in the corners of my heart where uncertainty lingered. Was my faith merely an act of compliance? Were the dogmas I taught suffocating the true essence of spirituality? These questions loomed over me like dark clouds, threatening to unravel the sanctuary I had built around my beliefs. Then came the night that changed everything. I stepped outside for a brief respite, seeking solace in the cool night air. In the silence, an inexplicable force pulled me into a deep slumber. Within this slumber, I found myself in a vast, oppressive void. The darkness felt suffocating, yet it suddenly illuminated with an unmatched brilliance as the figure of Jesus appeared before me. His presence was overwhelming, radiating an intense love that pierced through the shadows. "I am here," he said, his voice resonating with an authority that calmed my turmoil. In that moment, I felt my heart, heavy with doubt, begin to lift. Jesus revealed to me the hidden truths about our world, the spiritual war raging beyond the physical realm. He spoke of the elite manipulating societies through lies and deceptions, stoking fear and division to maintain control. I watched, as if viewing a cinematic portrayal of humanity's struggles, the dark forces that siphoned hope and unity from our lives. As he opened my eyes to the hidden agenda crafted by those in power, I felt both horror and conviction. These revelations illuminated the links between my personal struggles and the broader societal issues we faced. It was as if I were awakening from a long slumber, finally seeing the world through a lens of truth that had been shrouded in darkness. With each revelation Jesus shared, a sense of urgency surged within me. It became clear that my experience was not just for me, it was a profound call to action. I was being urged to rise and share this newfound understanding with my community. Yet even as I absorbed the magnitude of this spiritual awakening, fear crept in. How would my family and students react if I challenged the very teachings I had upheld? The fear of severing ties with those I loved haunted me, but so did the understanding that to turn my back on this revelation would be a betrayal of the truth I had witnessed. Now, standing in the boundary between ignorance and enlightenment, I prepared to confront the reality of my life. The risk of isolation loomed, but the promise of awakening felt far more significant. I knew I had a choice to make, and the time was drawing near to take action against the deception that had buried our truth. I stand before you as Ahmed, a 35-year-old Sheikh and respected teacher of the Quran. From the outside, I seemed to embody the ideals of faith and discipline. My life had been devoted to the principles of Islam, leading prayers and guiding my community. Yet beneath this disciplined exterior, I felt a growing spiritual emptiness gnawing at my soul. Each day, I would recite verses and teach lessons, but there was a disconnect, an internal conflict brewing within me. Doubts that I had long suppressed began to surface, questioning the very foundation of my beliefs. The oppressive atmosphere of my surroundings did little to quell my insecurities. The community revered tradition, and any hint of dissent or inquiry was met with disdain. My own faith became stifling, leaving little room for the doubts that had crept into my heart like weeds taking over a neglected garden. I often found myself staring into the mirror, wondering if my devotion was genuine or simply a performance crafted to meet the expectations of those around me. The internal struggle intensified each day, and the weight of my responsibilities felt heavier, a burden I could no longer carry alone. It was during one of those restless nights, overwhelmed by worry and feeling utterly lost, that I experienced the event that would transform my life. While drifting in and out of sleep, I was jolted awake by a sensation of being pulled into an infinite darkness. In that void, a profound stillness surrounded me, and suddenly, a brilliant light emerged. I felt warmth enveloping me, and before me stood Jesus, radiant and full of love. His presence flooded my entire being, and as he called my name, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. In that moment, the doubts and confusion that plagued me began to dissolve in the light of his revelation. Jesus spoke, and his words were like a sword piercing through the layers of deception I had unknowingly accepted. He revealed to me the hidden agendas that manipulate our world, the elite who orchestrate division through fear and misinformation. I witnessed scenes playing out before me. Wars ignited under false pretenses, communities torn apart by anger and misunderstanding, and the power structures built on the backs of suffering innocents. Everything I thought I knew about loyalty and duty shifted as my eyes were opened to the truth. The spiritual war is not just a metaphor, it's a real battle for the hearts and souls of humanity. As the visions unfolded, I felt an urgency rising within me, a compelling call to take action against the forces of deception that had ensnared us all. This experience was not merely personal. It was a call from Jesus to awaken others from their spiritual slumber. I felt a profound sense of responsibility to share what I had learned, to challenge the complacency that had gripped my community. But with that awareness came the chilling realization of what it might cost me. The fear of rejection loomed over me like a storm cloud, threatening to drown out the light I had just discovered. Yet, even as fear gnawed at my heart, I knew I had no choice but to rise and confront this spiritual war head-on, driven by the truth I had been shown and the love that Jesus had instilled in me. As I knelt in prayer each day, I began to feel an unsettling disconnection, a silent chasm growing between the rituals I cherished and the deeper truths yearning to surface within my soul. It was in these moments of supplication that the weight of discontent became most palpable. I could feel the words slipping through my fingers like grains of sand, each invocation echoing in the stillness of the mosque yet failing to resonate within my heart. There I was, Ahmed, a respected Sheikh, yet I started to question everything I had been taught, the teachings I fervently imparted to my students, the very foundations upon which my life was built. I couldn't shake the feeling that religion, rather than being a pathway to truth, might serve as a system of control, orchestrated by those who benefit from our obedience. Night after night, I lay awake, wrestling with my thoughts. Was there a hidden agenda woven into the fabric of our beliefs, one designed to maintain the status quo? I struggled with the implications of such an idea, torn between the faith that had given meaning to my life and the nagging doubts that whispered truths I was reluctant to hear. I had been sheltered by tradition, yet I sensed something stirring within me, a longing for authenticity in a world rife with deception. The very essence of my faith felt at odds with the burgeoning awakening I experienced in my heart. I felt trapped within the walls of dogma, my spirit craving liberation from the confines imposed by well-meaning, yet misguided, adherence to tradition. It was during one such restless night that I experienced a profound shift. My body succumbed to exhaustion, and I drifted into a deep sleep. The darkness enveloped me, cocooning me in stillness, until I found myself standing in a vast expanse of nothingness. It was in that oppressive void that Jesus appeared, radiating light and compassion in a way I had never known. His presence filled the space around me, dispelling the darkness that sought to engulf my spirit. "Ahmed, you are not alone," he spoke, and with those words, a cascade of warmth enveloped me, igniting a fire within my soul. In that sacred moment, Jesus revealed the truth I had been seeking, peeling back the layers of deception that clouded my understanding. I saw the struggle of humanity laid bare, the spiritual war being waged not just in distant lands, but within the hearts of those around me. He showed me the manipulation perpetrated by the elite, the systems designed to keep us isolated and fearful. I became acutely aware of the hidden agendas that fueled conflict and division, that prioritized control over compassion. The clarity I felt was overwhelming, yet it also came with a sense of urgency. I realized I had a responsibility to share this awakening with others who remained trapped in ignorance. As the visions unfolded, I experienced both exhilaration and fear. The teachings Jesus shared demanded action, a call to arms against the very structures that had conditioned us to remain silent. I felt empowered to confront the deception, not only within myself, but also within my community. Yet the fear of rejection from those I loved loomed large. Would my family and community accept the truths I was beginning to embrace? Or would they reject me as a pariah? I stood at a crossroads, grappling with the weight of my decisions, the consequences of my newfound beliefs pressing down upon me. But as I awoke from that encounter, a fire ignited within me, urging me to embark on a journey of transformation and to awaken others to the profound truths that awaited us all. After the severe car accident, everything around me faded to black. I remember feeling a jolt of impact, the shattering of glass, and then silence enveloped me like a thick fog. As consciousness slipped away, I found myself in a vast emptiness, an expansive void that felt both terrifying and strangely comforting. It was as if I had been suspended outside of time, caught between the worlds of the living and the dead. In this profound silence, I encountered something unimaginable, a brilliant light breaking through the darkness. Suddenly, I was not alone. Standing before me, bathed in radiant light, was Jesus. His presence filled the space with an overwhelming sense of peace and love, so intense that I felt as if my soul was flooding with warmth. "Ahmed," he said, his voice resonating deeply within me. In that moment, all my doubts and fears faded away. I was seen, understood, and welcomed into a reality that transcended everything I had ever known. As I stood there in awe, Jesus began to unveil the truths I had overlooked during my life, the struggles that had haunted me, and the very essence of my faith. He revealed to me the realities of the spiritual war being fought within our society, a battle that many, including myself, had been blissfully ignorant of. Jesus illuminated the hidden agenda behind the systems of control, the manipulation wielded by the elite to maintain their power through deception and division. I watched as scenes played out before me, battles between light and darkness, humans living in fear, and a world mired in conflict, all perpetuated by the narratives we had taken for granted. The understanding that this deception had seeped into every aspect of life was both shocking and liberating. As these revelations unfolded, I felt my spirit awakening, challenging me to reconsider the teachings I had upheld for so long. Was I merely promoting a system that kept my community confined within rigid boundaries, separating them from the transformative love and acceptance of Jesus? I was compelled to confront my own contributions to this cycle. I experienced a kaleidoscope of emotions, guilt for my complicity in perpetuating these deceptions, paired with a fierce desire to awaken others to the path of truth that I had only just begun to grasp. In the presence of Jesus, the call to action became evident. My near-death experience was not simply a personal encounter. It was a profound invitation to stand against the spiritual war that was ravaging our world. The urgency surged within me as I realized that countless souls remained trapped in the chains of ignorance and fear. If I could rise from this experience with renewed purpose, surely others could too. As Jesus imparted his message of hope and awakening, I felt a swelling within my heart. The mission was clear, and I was ready to share this revelation with those who needed it most. Yet I also understood the weight of this calling, aware of the potential consequences that awaited me in my community: isolation, rejection, and the challenge to confront the very foundations of my life. When I awoke from the depths of that transformative experience, reality hit me like a freight train. My eyes fluttered open, only to be met with the sterile walls of a hospital room, a stark contrast to the radiant light I had encountered in the presence of Jesus. The initial sense of peace I felt began to fade, replaced by an overwhelming wave of panic as I realized what lay ahead. The very core of my being knew that the revelations I had received would incite serious repercussions. I was not just battling the remnants of my old self. I was now in a war against the very foundations of the life I had built. The moment I returned home, the rejection from my family and community became painfully apparent. Their eyes, once filled with respect and admiration, were now filled with betrayal and scorn. Accusations flew at me. Heretic, traitor. Each word cut deeper than any blade, forging chains of guilt around my heart. I could sense the invisible walls closing in, isolating me from the love I had known all my life. My relatives, who had once been my pillars of strength, turned their backs, as if I were an intruder in my own home. The spiritual war one had encountered during my near-death experience manifested in stark clarity in my waking life. I felt profoundly alone in a sea of people who no longer understood me. The internal turmoil was relentless. Guilt gnawed at my conscience as I grappled with my newfound feelings and beliefs. I had no choice but to confront my parents, yet every interaction felt fraught with tension. How could I explain the truth I had seen?